Name is Keri Mullen, and currently I am in charge of our business care and financial services team. And what that consists of is really just supporting our larger business customers overall with any of their needs on a day to day basis. Um, my leadership experience, oh goodness. I would say that it's been overall there's been several people I think in my life that have impacted me and given me the I would say courage and confidence to do bigger and better things and challenge myself to do things outside of my comfort zone. And I definitely will say, specifically with the organization that I've been with now for 22 years, I was kind of in a place where I was in a sales mode overall, leading people to be successful with quotas and things of that nature. But I would say then I got to a place where I wanted to learn different things and get outside of my comfort zone. And so I did that. I went into different roles that have challenged me in different ways. And I think that that just continues to sharpen your skills as a leader when you put yourself out there to learn something new and different. I think it's a way to relate to others when they're having to learn new things as well. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And having been a part of your leadership journey, it's definitely neat to be able to connect with you on a level where I get to learn from you again. So that's awesome that you took time out to do this. Um,
absolutely.
for the first question, I wanted to ask, what are some of the ways you uncover what motivates your team members? And do you have any specific processes to ensure you keep team members motivated once you uncovered what drives them?
I think it's important. I'll say that my next level underneath me are my leaders specifically is really understanding what their goals are, right? Is there something that they want to do or accomplish, and supporting them in that, giving them opportunity, right, to experience that so they can move to that next level. I think it's important to build that relationship of trust so that they know that if you're putting them in an uncomfortable situation because you're stretching them, that they know, like, okay, but she's still got my back and she's going to support me and help me through this. Because I think that that's important to understand, right? Because that's really what motivates people when they are learning and they have goals that they want to do something. And then I think there are those individuals that are like, I'm okay. I'm okay with where I'm at and I don't really want to do anything else. And that's okay. But making sure that if you're in that space that you're doing and being your best, right? So still motivating them, and I think it's important to delegate and give those people opportunity to grow. So if I'm out, I let my leaders lead calls and kind of fill in for me so that they kind of get that opportunity to be in front of other individuals and learn and get uncomfortable, right? Because I feel like that's where the growth is when we're in that uncomfortable situation. Like that's where you learn a lot about yourself and what you want to do. So I think it's just, and I inspire that in them to do with their teams, right? So that they're motivating their teams, know your people, know what they want to do, and so that you can help them accomplish that. And then if they want to be where they are, that's okay, but help them be their best in where they are. So.
Absolutely. I definitely remember times when you encouraged me to follow up on IDPs that were above and beyond what I felt comfortable with, and I definitely appreciated that, and it helped me grow a lot throughout my career. So thank you for that passion. Tell me a time about when you had a really difficult conversation with a direct report. Hopefully, don't use me. And how did you prepare for this meeting? And how did you develop the skills to manage this? And we'll go from there. So,
Yeah.
how did you develop the skills, and also how did you pre-plan for your discussion that you thought would be challenging?
I think early on in my leadership journey, that was a really right. No one likes to have tough conversations. It's uncomfortable. You have anxiety. Not only the person you're speaking to, but yourself, right? Because you want to make sure you say the right thing and you have all your ducks in a row. Because you just don't know how that person's coming in to sit with you. But I think what I've learned in my journey is that you should be having these conversations all along. So it's never a surprise. Now, does the other person always hear all of those feedback things you're giving them? No, not always. But it does help overall, right? Because then when you really have to say, okay, so, we've had XYZ conversations and you're not changing your behavior. So now we're going to have to sit down and have this right tougher conversation. But I think for me, at this point, not that this is a good thing, but I've had several of tough conversations throughout my career. So it's not as hard as it used to be, right? When I first started. But it's also, having compassion. Just because you're having a tough conversation doesn't mean that it has to be ugly or that it has to be mean. I mean, you're really having that conversation to help that person. And I think that's where you have to start is, hey, I'm here to help you, right? So I'm bringing this to your attention because I want you to get better, right? And I think as a leader, I just know for me, and I probably most leaders, that when you see that person change and do that turnaround with the conversation, like that's the joy, right? I think you get as a leader is like, oh my goodness, like they're totally taking my feedback and they're making a difference now and they're, changing their behavior and they're influencing others, right? Because I think when that light bulb clicks on for someone, it's kind of like, oh, well, yeah, I want to be successful because now I'm getting recognized for all these good things I'm doing. And then that person wants to, right, help others. And so I think that's kind of what has helped me be more successful with those tough conversations. And even with my leaders, right? Like, hey, it doesn't have to be, because there could be, people get upset. And so it's making sure that, right, you have that empathy for them. But you don't lose sight of, okay, here's what I have to get to though by the end of the conversation. So
Right. When I think about some of the feedback you gave me that was poignant in my career, you always did it with facts as well. And like you always had like a good plan of like how I could correct it. Like you never left me wondering about, what was my next step. You always helped support me even though I had made a mistake. And I think that was something that was really impactful, learning that from you.
well,
So
and look at you now. I mean, goodness.
Yep. Can you describe a time when a team member had a different work or communication style that led to a misunderstanding or conflict? And how did you help bridge the gap in that impact and ultimately
Um,
help their performance?
so yes. Um, I think that you have to appreciate that not everyone you work with is going to be have the same thoughts or ideas or plans or right because they're at maybe a different place in their leadership journey. But I can think of a specific example of working with a peer. Specifically in our department that kind of helps with just overall staffing needs and kind of on a day-to-day basis where we're at with performance and things like that. And I think probably our situation, you get in the habit of emailing or IMing, and so sometimes your whole thought doesn't necessarily, right? And it's probably the age we're in too, right? Like everyone, I mean, I get pinged like 40 million times a day, I'm sure, just like most people. And sometimes you think that what you've said is like sufficient, but maybe not. And so there has been that opportunity where we kind of got sideways in what And my communication style is pretty direct. Brian, you know this about me.
Yeah.
Uh, I mean, and not that I mean to be insensitive, I'm just getting to the point in my message. And so it's something that I've had to learn to, realize who my audience is and who I'm talking to because not everyone knows me. Like you would totally get a message from me and be like, oh, yeah, that's Keri, no big deal.
Right.
But this individual did not, right? We did not have a relationship. And so they really didn't know. And so my message came across pretty direct and their feelings got hurt. And so when I got that feedback, I reached out to that person and said, hey, could we please schedule some time just to talk? Because first of all, I own the fact that my message was direct. That wasn't how I meant to come across. And that, you know, I am not one to write a book. I'm not going to, clog up your email or your instant messaging. So I apologize and took accountability for them not knowing that that's my personality, and that what my intent was, right? So my intent was just to give you the facts, and then I expected you to go do what I needed you to do. But just knowing where people are at and maybe building that relationship a little more and probably picking up the phone a lot more than we do, right? Because we just
Yeah.
get into that habit of instant message, I'm gonna send you an IM or email, and that's how we communicate. And so just making sure that you take the time. So that was kind of a situation where I kind of had to build the trust with that person so that we had a good working relationship. And now we're in a place where they totally understand where I'm coming from and don't take that I'm being too direct.
Right.
But yeah, it's just sometimes you have to remember hey, not everyone knows you or has that kind of communication style, right? So
Right. I can definitely think back to times where you had us explore, like with Tony Robbins, and do other activities through communication styles, and I always thought that was helpful too. What are some personal value? Oh, no, let me rephrase this. Have you ever had a time when your personal values clashed with your organization norms or directives, and how did you navigate that conflict, and what did you learn from the experience?
so I think that with the organization that we're with, it absolutely aligns with my personal values because I don't think I would be here so long, right? If they didn't.
Right.
I think where I've gotten um, in a place is when I've had to address a situation with an individual and hold them accountable because they didn't have the same values. And they had been with the organization for a long time, right? And so, and hold them accountable for um, either poor performance or behavior that was not in alignment with our organization, right? And those are hard, especially when it's someone that you've worked with for a long time and they've held those values just like you, right? Like, hey, let's all do the right thing, right? It's about doing the right thing, and then them not doing the right thing. And really having to address that with them. And at times, some people had to lose their jobs because of it, right? But me understanding still at the end of the day that I'm I'm gonna I'm gonna do the right thing, right? Regardless of how long this person's been with the organization, because they know what we stand for, right? And I do think it's about having integrity and even when it's hard, right? I mean, even when it's tough and you've known this person a long time and you think about, all the things that they've done, it's been good, right? But then realizing wow, how did they get to this place, right? Where they chose to make bad decisions. And so I think my values are always in a line, I think, with US Cellular. I just think it's hard when others in the organization know what our values are, but choose to just take a different road, so to speak, so that you're kind of in a place where you have to, right? make those hard decisions, and but still know at the end of the day you did the right thing.